Okay, let's check this out. This is the succession of changing kings.
In ancient chronicles covered with the dust of oblivion, 5 kings are mentioned, each of whom reigned for no more than 444 days. This was the exact amount of time needed for each contender to complete the path to coronation, a peculiar tradition rooted in the sacred texts. This period became known as the succession of changing kings. A once prosperous kingdom had withered into a decaying fiefdom. Fields that had yielded bountiful harvests were now overgrown with weeds. Trade caravans had all but vanished, and the finest of its people had abandoned their homeland in search of a better future. Few dared to hope that you, the last of an ancient dynasty, would succeed in breaking this vicious cycle. The wise patriarch went to the throne of light to pray for you. Before leaving, the patriarch vowed
And
to
if I'm
return
streaming and
in
gaming,
exactly
day is good.
444 days to preside over your coronation. Until then, you will remain a Dauphin, a mere shadow of a future king. As you ascended the throne, the sky above the castle was gray and gloomy. Doubt swirled around you, denser than the clouds overhead. But somewhere in the depth of your mind, a thought flickered. Your fate has not been sealed yet. Time loomed over you like an unrelenting weight, but one chance remained. The only chance to prove that you were more than just another failure on the throne, to show that you were the one who could restore the light and glory of the kingdom. Break the succession of changing kings at any cost. Survive to be crowned king.
Okay, here we go.
The hall was cloaked in dim light, with the flickering glow of the fireplace casting long shadows on the walls, lending the surroundings an air of mystery. You stood by the massive window, gazing out at the distant hills. Your thoughts drifted between past and future, fears and hopes intertwining. Faint footsteps echoed in the corridor, the heavy door opened soundlessly, and Adrian the Holloway entered the room. Of course, you had heard of him. His silver hair and trimmed beard gave him the appearance of a wise figure from ancient legends. The steward paused at the threshold, regarding you with a look of respect tinged with subtle sorrow. "Your Grace," he began softly, his voice smooth and warm like velvet spreading through the room. "Allow me to offer my congratulations on your ascension to the throne. I am Adrian I. Holloway, your steward and henceforth your loyal servant. I am here to assist you in this trying hour." A faint, barely perceptible smile flickered across Adrian's lips as he gestured toward the table, where a map of the kingdom lay spread out. "Let us start with the fundamentals," he began. "Here on this map are all the lands of our kingdom. Every region, every village, every forest, and every river. This is your kingdom, and you must know it as well as the back of your hand." Adrian's long, graceful fingers glided over the map, bringing its features to life with each motion. "You rule not just over the land, but over its people," he continued, his tone taking on a sterner edge. "Every soul, from the humblest peasant to the mightiest noble, looks to you for justice and wisdom. But understand this: justice is a concept that varies from one person to the next, and sometimes wisdom demands actions that seem to defy justice. Equally vital is maintaining a respectable level of the kingdom's defense. The lower it falls, the more pirates, bandits, and unscrupulous neighbors will seek to exploit it. A weakened healthcare invites epidemics and disease. Threats no fortress walls, no matter how strong, can keep at bay." You listened intently, your expression growing grave as the weight of your duties began to settle upon you. The steward led you through the narrow corridors of the castle, past ancient tapestries and stone arches. You stopped before a massive door adorned with intricate carvings. Adrian produced a key that he always carried and opened it. He guided you to a large writing desk made of dark wood, where neatly arranged project cards were laid out. "Here is a list of potential projects for construction and people you may consider hiring, sire," he explained, gesturing toward the scrolls. Oddly enough, despite the succession of changing kings, the castle's vaults still hold a decent stockpile of gold. There is also a fair amount of stone, timber, and ore in the storerooms. But your time is limited, and these resources must be spent wisely. Use your royal initiative prudently. It is your most critical resource. He paused, allowing you to absorb the gravity of his words. You must decide whether to repair the heavily worn fortress walls or to strengthen the royal guard. Perhaps it's better to provide work for the commoners, so they don't idle about aimlessly. Do you enjoy? Adrian led you further through the corridors, eventually arriving at the throne hall, a modest room with walls adorned by banners and a single throne standing.
Curb your appetite. For centuries, tradition dictated that taxes in the northeastern lands, stretching from the Satyr Mountains to the Shadow Valley, were collected by the army stationed in Okor, a fortress perched on the border between your kingdom and the Duchy of Thorn. The residents of these lands, simple peasants and artisans, had grown accustomed to this arrangement. The army provided protection and, in return, collected annual taxes set by the king himself. But times have changed. After a series of weak monarchs with diminishing authority, the army began to take greater liberties. What was once an annual duty transformed into a quarterly burden. The people could not replenish their stores quickly enough and struggled to feed their families. Smoldering resentment erupted into open rebellion. The commoners united under the leadership of a former blacksmith named Gorman, a man of both strong hands and an even stronger will. "We will no longer feed their bloated bellies," Gorman proclaimed at a gathering in an old barn that served as the rebels' temporary headquarters. "Let them work the fields themselves if they want our bread. We will pay taxes only to the king, as it should be. No middlemen, no greedy collectors from Okor." Word of the rebellion spread swiftly across the northeastern lands and beyond. People defied the soldiers. For the residents of the Shadow Valley, this matter was about more than money. It was about dignity. While you return some funds, the proud peasants will not forget your injustice. The army, while displeased by reduced revenue, was willing to tolerate it.
I'll share that didn't go well, but I don't know. I figured we gotta have some taxes, but in a once a year. Evidently, if you try to please both sides, you just piss some both off.
The harder the training, the harder the battle. You accepted General Bardarian's invitation to attend the annual military drills near the fortress of Okor, located in the northeastern part of your kingdom. This event was an opportunity to witness the finest soldiers of the realm in action. The fortress of Okor loomed atop a hill, its walls and garrison serving as the shield between your kingdom and the Duchy of Thorn. Thorn's golden age is long past, and today it poses no threat. But 30 years ago, a young Bardarian earned his first scar beneath these very walls. The gates of the fortress creaked open, and you rode inside on horseback. The inner courtyard was bustling with soldiers, their faces a mix of curiosity and interest. General Bardarian stood at the base of the main tower, greeting you with a broad smile and a welcoming gesture. "Welcome to Okor, your majesty. We are honored by your presence at our annual drills." You followed the general through the fortress, observing the soldiers' training. Warriors honed their skills on training dummies, shot arrows at targets, and performed coordinated group assaults. This ritual was not only a demonstration of their prowess, but also a testament to their discipline. Your refusal was predictably interpreted as cowardice. Then again, no one expected too much from it. The butler's advice. The butler catches you poring over documents belonging to your predecessors, the previous Dauphin. Much of what you have read today could only be described as drivel, such as Gilbert the Glutton's 76 donut recipes or Magnus the Heretic's annotated chess games. However, a significant portion was penned by Sigurus the Recluse, perhaps the most accomplished of the changing kings. He was only 4 days shy of coronation. You stretched lazily, allowing your still young bones to creak like those of an elder. "Your Majesty," Adrian the Ferner Holloway begins, his tone reverent but firm. "May I offer some advice? Everyone is eagerly awaiting a sign of your favor. Countess Ivinchel, Holy Father Lumiel, and General Bardarian have already arrived in the capital. It is widely believed that the first audience granted by a new ruler signals where their loyalties will lie. You recall your conversation with the butler yesterday and decide to probe further. And if my majesty were to show favor to the common folk, who should I meet with? For a moment, the all-knowing Adrian freezes, caught off guard. Then he recovers and answers, "Sir, that is somewhat unconventional, as the common folk have no formal representative. However, I suppose you could forego meeting the three high-ranking figures and instead visit the nearest village. Such an act would send a very clear message." In less than 15 minutes, the butler. Reliance on the army. The doors of the hall opened without a knock, and the general appeared in the doorway. Bardarian was completely bald, his head gleaming under the torchlight, with several scars crisscrossing his skin, each telling a story of countless battles. His face, rugged and sharp with deep wrinkles, spoke of years spent on the battlefield. His dark, penetrating eyes were sharp and observant. A slight hint of bulkiness only emphasized his powerful physique. It is, of course, reassuring to have an ally like Bardarian, yet you cannot shake the thought that your uncle Anzabal was coldly beheaded by the very general of his own army. Stingy and even stingier. In the early days of your reign, news arrived of the death of Igar Pagan, a notorious miser aristocrat and possessor of untold wealth. His name was synonymous with greed and hoarding, and even in his final days, he remained true to his principles. Having no direct heirs, his many relatives eagerly awaited the chance to claim the vast fortune hidden within the depths of his desolate mansion. However, Igar Pagan's will proved a fitting epitaph to his life of stinginess. In his final decree, he ordered, "My wealth shall go to no one, bury it with me." This command caused a wave of outrage and debate, and the matter was brought before you as the supreme arbiter, with the hope that you would bring justice to such an absurd situation. By the end of the week, small outposts on the borders with Kokeo and Dalaman began seeing significant fortifications and winter-ready housing. Soldiers received generous rations and new weapons. Glory to the Dauphin! If the stars are lit, you toss and turn restlessly. Many witnessed the falling star tonight and saw it as a good omen for the start of the new king's reign. However, there were also those who believed this reign would be as brilliant and fleeting as the star's descent.
This is awesome so far. I appreciate that it's all voiced.
You were leisurely traveling along a countryside road between the capital and the Bay of Storms, avoiding the main route. For safety and to learn more about the country, you chose this less traveled path. Even in these remote areas, life thrived, albeit at a slower pace. Small streams and brooks. The aristocrats' furious outcry was drowned out by a thunderous "Hail to King!" However, the joy diminished when you received letters from high-ranking military officials complaining about uniform shortages, as well as a terse note from Eleanor and Vinchel, representing the aristocracy. She made it clear that this approach would not win you friends among the nobles. Matters of the port. The capital's docks welcome incoming ships with their clean quayside, bright orange tiled roofs, and the scent of 1,000 spices. It is nothing like the usual expectations of a trading port, with its drunkards, the aroma of stale sweat, and the colorless vomit splashing onto cobblestones after days of being tossed about on the waves. The credit for the pristine state of the capital's waterfront lies with the old aristocratic family of House Nightingale. They own most of the buildings and warehouses in the port. However, this cleanliness comes at a steep cost. Local merchants pay exorbitant rents, additional levies, and endure the absence of the city guard. By decree of King Radwin, please forgive me, the city watch no longer patrols the port. On one hand, this denies them the opportunity to earn a little extra from foreign traders. On the other, it clearly weakens the capital's security. A united group of merchants and city guards has approached you, demanding not only the repeal of House Nightingale's privileges, but also a significant curbing of their excessive demands in the capital's port. Sometimes compromises satisfy no one. This was one of those times. The aristocrat expressed strong disapproval of having his rights limited, pointedly reminding you that the port is only the respectable place it is today thanks to his efforts. Meanwhile, the merchants grumbled that since the king didn't fully rein in the overbearing aristocrat, they could soon expect another rent increase. The army, however, was pleased. Still, a 2-to-1 split isn't the kind of outcome you should aim for. If you wish to avoid sharing the fate of King Radwin, please forgive me. The maze to nowhere. You stumble upon a massive, cobweb-covered portrait of your great-great-great-great-grandfather, Tartagon the Builder, in one of the castle's far corners. Family legends claim that he was the one who completely rebuilt the capital and the royal fortress. Overcome with a sudden wave of gratitude toward your noble ancestor, you order the portrait cleaned and hung in a more prominent place. However, the servants discover a hidden entrance to a dark underground passage behind it. Will you send someone to explore it, descend yourself, or leave the secrets untouched? Someone called Indiana and his group of companions claim to have been exploring the tombs of ancient kings long before your majesty was even born. This time, however, they found nothing of value, only spiders and bat droppings. Nevertheless, they charged as if they had discovered a diamond the size of a fist. Merely a piece of iron. A star fell somewhere in Verador, the ancient, uninhabited forest in the southern part of the kingdom. Searching for it could take weeks, yet you have a strong feeling that finding it is essential and that it might play a significant role in your future. Will you launch an expedition? The guards found a forester who witnessed the approximate site of the meteorite's fall. By the end of the week, you held a small fragment of cosmic iron, the rest likely destroyed upon impact, which was handed over to the blacksmith for examination. Silver lining. You sit in the throne hall, watching the play of light reflecting through the stained glass windows.
I'm
when a
really
group of
digging
peasants
this.
And a noble aristocrat appears before you. Their faces are tense and anxious, and you realize that you are about to make another difficult decision. When were they ever easy? At the head of the peasants stands the village elder, his face lined with deep wrinkles. Next to him is a young shepherd, judging by his attire. Opposite them stands the aristocrat, Edward III Melwood, haughty and confident in his claim. 5 years ago, the common folk rented a patch of land in the foothills for my Melwood to graze their sheep. The land seemed barren, but for the peasants, it was their only hope of feeding them. Deep down, the common folk understood that keeping the mine was too good to be true. They accepted your decision with gratitude. The nobleman, however, was far from pleased. He had been robbed for lunch.
Okay, let's take a look at this.
Three eyes. Parhelia, a rare phenomenon, graced the skies of the kingdom for the first time in a century. Two dazzling solar discs flanked the true sun like loyal sentinels. The luminous, ever faithful to their doctrine, interpreted this as a sign of divine purification. Three suns burn away all sins, like three fiery eyes of the celestial judge, they said. News of this event spread like wildfire across the kingdom, and people abandoned their daily lives to embark on pilgrimages. Holy texts prescribed a 3-day and 3-night journey, permitting stops only for rest and cleansing. However, in their religious fervor, many left their homes without even packing a crust of bread. It is frightening to imagine what could have happened without your decision. Of course, luxuries were out of the question, but every pilgrim received a bowl of stew and a mug of clean water. It cost the trip. There is no sadder story in the world. The cattleman's alley was bathed in the light of the setting sun when tragedy struck, shaking the peace of the capital. Two noble houses, the I Montecu and the I Calopeto families, whose names were always on the lips of the city's high society, clashed in a deadly confrontation. The feud between these families had roots that stretched back through the ages, but this time it ended in heartbreak. Young Tibor in Calopeto, a fiery youth with pride ablaze in his eyes and heart, challenged Mercurio in Montecu to a duel. Their clash, like a bolt of lightning, unfolded before the astonished citizens. What began as heated words soon escalated into desperate blows. Before anyone could intervene, Tibor's blade pierced Mercurio's chest. The blood of the young Montecu streamed onto the cobblestones, mingling with the dust, forming patterns as if an invisible artist painted a final masterpiece. Upon reflection, even Tibor deemed the punishment fair. He resolved to seek Lumen's divine light while serving his sentence in a distant monastery. The church warned him. Holy Father's only weakness. The only known weakness of Holy Father Lumiel was chess. His eternally stern face and ascetic lifestyle somehow coexisted with the spirit of an avid player who had honed his skills to a remarkable level. In every match, he displayed an unparalleled ability to foresee his opponent's moves and plan several steps ahead. Perhaps there was not a single noble in the kingdom who did not know how to play chess. A good game was considered a hallmark of not only great intellect, but also a sign of refined aristocracy. This evening in your study in Valendor, the atmosphere was especially tense. A popular opening, the Dalaman Gambit, was unfolding on the board. Holy Father Lumiel favored an aggressive attack with two knights, always aiming to seize the initiative early on. His fianchetto bishop ominously... You purse your lips and bow your head, conceding defeat. Opting for positional play over a decisive attack, you slowly lost your advantage. In chess parlance, you were outplayed on skill alone. Your Majesty. Attempted poisoning. Outside, the rain fell in torrents. Dark clouds hung heavily over Valendor, casting a somber pall over the realm. The thick, heavy air was laden with the scent of dampness, and raindrops drummed incessantly against the stone walls, creating a monotonous hum. Weary after a grueling day, you requested some warmed wine, hoping it would bring warmth and calm. Your faithful butler, Adrian Morris Holloway, silently fulfilled your request, presenting you with a goblet of the aromatic beverage. Warm steam rose from the wine, filling the air with the spicy aromas of cinnamon and cloves. You took a few sips, savoring the heat that spread through your body, but almost immediately you sensed something amiss. A dull ache began in your chest, then a sharp pain twisted your stomach. Your breathing grew erratic, your hands trembled, and the goblet slipped from your weakening grasp, spilling wine. In their final moments, many turned their thoughts to the divine. You were no exception. When the Luminite monk arrived in answer to the call, you lay lifeless in a pool of blood and excrement. Initially, they considered naming you the Excrementato King, but the church insisted that such a spiritual individual should be remembered as the Call the Luminites quickly king.
Good to know I suck at this lol.
Twist of the wrist and a bit of trickery. You travel back to the castle along a winding country road that snakes between rolling green hills and dense leafy forests. The main trade route, usually bustling with merchants and life, has been rendered impassable by recent rains, forcing your entourage to take a detour. The sun dips low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the path. Suddenly, up ahead, you spot a gathering of people. They've formed a circle, and laughter and applause echo from its center. As you approach, you see a magician clad in a long, hooded cloak, deftly juggling before pulling vibrant flowers out of thin air, as if by magic. "Troy, son of Gishbar, at your service," he announces with a graceful bow, meeting your gaze. His voice brims with energy and an almost otherworldly charisma that makes you... Hundreds of soldiers spend an entire week fanning out the country roads and roadside taverns. No trace of the... Matters of the port. The capital's docks welcome incoming ships with their clean quayside, bright orange tiled roofs, and the scent of 1,000 spices. It is nothing like the usual expectations of a trading port, with its drunkards, the aroma of stale sweat, and the colorless vomit splashing onto cobblestones after days of being tossed about on the waves. Your noble ancestors neglected the port's issues for far too long, and rushing to solve them now would only cause harm. Undoubtedly, Nightingale has done an excellent job for the glory of the kingdom, though primarily for his own benefit. His motives are understandable, but over time, all control over the port must gradually return to the crown. Today is not that day. Merchants will be exempt from royal taxes for 1 year, and the soldiers will receive a bonus. We will revisit this matter soon. The butler's advice. The butler catches you poring over documents belonging to your predecessors, the previous Dauphin. Much of what you have... Within the hour, a man in a gray hood appears. Reliance on the church. A tall... At first, Holy Father Lumiel's decision seems strange to you. However, it is well known that public baths protect against disease far better than even the strongest prayer. Stingy and even stingier. In the early days of your reign, news arrived of the death of Igar Pagan, a notorious miser aristocrat and possessor of untold wealth. His name was synonymous with greed and hoarding, and even in his final days, he remained... By the end of the week, small out... Many witnessed the falling star tonight and saw it as a good omen for the start of the new king's reign. However...
Round 2 isn't so bad.
Let's do business. With the last trading ship came news that smugglers had settled at the northern end of the Bay of Storms. Such rumors could not go ignored, and you, resolved to uncover the truth, set out with a large group of guards. The journey was long, but your determination and desire to address the situation carried you forward. After navigating through an endless series of coves, you arrived at the site by nightfall. Before you stretched a hidden world, shielded from... The smugglers began sending you regular financial gratitude, but the aristocrats were less than forgiving. There is no sense. The maze to nowhere. You stumble upon a massive, cobweb-covered portrait. Silver lining. You sit in the throne hall, watching the play of light reflecting through the stained glass windows, when a group of peasants and a noble aristocrat appears before you. Their faces are... Deep down, the common folk understood that keeping the mine was too... Merely a piece of iron. A star fell somewhere in Verador, the ancient, uninhabited forest.
Thanks for the sips, Cassie.
A smelly affair. You were leisurely traveling along a countryside road between the capital and the Bay of Storms, avoiding the main route. For safety and to learn more about the country, you chose this less traveled path. Even in these remote areas, life thrived, albeit at a slower pace. Small streams and brooks crisscrossed the road, giving it a Your decision was met with angry jeers, but no one dared to attack the royal entourage. Elgard bowed deeply and kissed your hand in gratitude. You shuddered. 3 eyes. Parhelia, a rare We are on fire. Your butler woke you in the middle of the night, just a couple of hours before dawn, shouting, "Fire!" The very next day after the fire, dozens of workers hastily recruited from the port arrived at the site. The local nobility was pleasantly surprised. The workers quickly cleared the rubble while an enhanced guard detail. Holy Father's only weakness. The only known... You scratch your head in bewilderment. Your grand plan unraveled by the third move. Holy Father's cornered pieces. Merely a piece of iron? You enter the workshop just as the blacksmith finishes examining the gleaming fragment of the fallen star. After the chilly streets of Valandor, the room feels unbearably stuffy, and you are tempted to shed your cloak despite the breach of etiquette. The young, muscular blacksmith greets you with a friendly smile and informs you that he has carefully studied the fragment. Nothing extraordinary. If you had not mentioned it fell from the sky, I would not have noticed anything unusual. The only thing I can say is that working with this metal makes my head spin, similar to working with lead. You bid him farewell. The strange cosmic metal, which may have caused the blacksmith's death, has been...
This is a lot of fun, lol. I'm digging it.
Cattle mutilations. Several large peasant farms. Your drastic measures were effective. Soldiers swept through the countryside in tight formation, ensuring that no animal in the affected area was overlooked. The harder the training, the harder the battle. It was not as bad as one might have thought. You deflected a series of powerful blows from your opponent quite well, but quickly found yourself out of breath. The lack of training took its toll. In the end, your opponent knelt suddenly and delivered a strong strike to your legs. You fell and decided minor ailment. The morning was cold and windy when you began to feel a faint tickle in your throat, the air imbued with death by cold. It all began with what seemed like an ordinary ailment. On that fateful day, as the cold wind whispered its ominous tales and chilled your skin, you felt a faint tickle in your throat. Convinced it was nothing more than a passing cold, you continued your duties,
Death
ignoring
by
the foreboding
cold.
signs. Your loyal servants offered warm tea and a soft blanket, but you, unyielding... After your death, conflicts erupted across the kingdom, with every region becoming a hotbed of power struggles. The result of your short and inglorious reign was the complete collapse of a once mighty state. The aristocracy became entangled in endless feuds. The common folk staged one rebellion after another, and the army lost all discipline. The Luminites, once a pillar of stability, lost their influence over the people.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. I had a lot of fun. I am always a sucker for games that have choices, and then those choices have consequences, and then you have to adapt your gameplay, and that informs your next decisions and your next if I just love that web of events. Thanks all.